a scion of many worlds. You know, when I was told you were nicknamed Hercules, I wasn't expecting you to have a giant toga on your lower body. Emmanuel notes to the gigantic Lydris towering next to him. Emmanuel is a big man, unnaturally big and damn near 3 times as tall as a normal Earthani. Hercules towers over him like he towers over his fellows. And when I was told we were rescuing an Earthani as an excuse to rush off into wild space to uplift a lost colony, I expected a delicate little moth that could land on my arm, not a giant shimmering primal that could rip it out of its socket. Well, I'm sorry to disappoint you. Have you received the briefing? Yes. The problem is that my armor isn't acclimatized to those depths. Same for my weapons. That trench goes deeper than the oceans of some entire worlds. Most aquatic races won't be able to go down there, let alone most vessels. Which is why no one's been able to find it until now. Emmanuel states, and Hercules nods. Right. Well, if I go down there, it's with the most basic weapons and equipment. The only thing we have that can get that deep is the research equipment on your mother's ship. He explains in a slightly disapproving tone. What? You're expecting an Earthani to swim? The deepest I've seen was where the sleeper was resting, and that was close enough for the being to be physically seen. Yes, well, you'd think a primal would be able to go for a little swim or something. Well, I need there to be to some domains for the next divinity to claim, Emmanuel says in the haughtiest tone he can manage. He catches a backhand to the chest as Hercules laughs at that. The floof, even pressed down under his shirt, cushions the blow so much that Emmanuel can barely feel it. He then receives a poke from Hercules and a hand from the Lydris pats him on the shoulder. My sister has stuffed animals only half as soft as you. It takes a real man to pull off soft and floofy fur, something I'm sure you know nothing about. Oh? What are you implying exactly? Hercules asks, with 2 bodies crossing their arms and getting right up to Emmanuel from either side. A fair question. Now, are you actually heading out soon, or? I'm waiting for my harpoons to finish up. I need something I can ward a predator off with, or at least something I can poke into places I'm too big to get into. Worst comes to worst, you can go clean through the hull. Yes, but scholars tend to get pissy when you destroy archaeological sites in order to save lives. That sounds like experience talking. No, of course not. By the way, don't bother looking up the world of Ermalik II or the ancient Melanic civilization of Lopin. Nothing interesting happened there. Ever. Of course. And how many more centuries until it starts to get interesting again? 3.5 until the place gets interesting. Hercules admits, and Emmanuel chuckles. I'll get the story out of you later. You need to finish whatever prep work you have for going down there. I don't think a giant toga on your massive lower body is part of it. Actually, it is. I've got a lot of pockets and pouches sewn into it, and it's made of a very strong synthetic material. It's my diving harness. Well, why don't you bring a club and sword while you're down there too? Go for the full Hercules experience. Sounds like a strange family reunion to me, Hercules notes. Now get out of here. I need to do a little more prep for this dive. A massive dark form glides silently through the water. Many smaller creatures panic and flee at the sheer presence of it. Many of them are predators that have been lying in wait for hours to grab a mouthful. A gigantic webbed claw grips the edge of an ancient metal structure, trapped and suspended in the inky black abyss. Lights blossom forth from the enormous form of Hercules as he gets himself comfortable, each of his 10 bodies holding a 20-foot spear with kutha gilding. These hooked harpoons will return to his hands at will, tearing themselves out of whatever they're stuck in, and are easily strong enough to be impaled into solid stone. He'd have preferred them strong enough to rend through a starship hull, but they were in a rush. The situation was getting even more complicated by the second, and the last thing they needed was some half-activated defensive drone with a crude VI or a curious predator to start poking around. So they sent the biggest, scariest water-based predator they had. The small lights along his back and the searchlight's cameras being held one-handed by his bodies brought proper illumination into this void. His central-most head is the only part of him with a communication setup, a specialized one, as a standard communicator would fail at these depths. At their command, he unfolds his paddle tail and gives a massive sweep to clean away an enormous amount of silt, and he turns two bodies to illuminate the area he cleaned off. There's still a great deal sticking to the hull. Deep sea life is tenacious like that, but it does show a few patterns consistent with extreme and sudden hull failure. He sweeps a few more times and hums to himself underwater. I'm going to give the underside a look, both to secure the perimeter and see if there's the sign of the attack there, he says as he fails to find any form of impact point on the upper side of the broken ship. Confirmed. With that confirmation, he swims off the side and then goes down, swiftly moving deeper than the small supply submarine and also scanning the walls and down deeper into the trench. The light doesn't penetrate all the way down, which is wild for how deep the trench is. However, what's equally interesting is the massive cracks forming along the walls. The world itself is trying to crush this ship like a clam between the jaws, but the ship is winning. So what the hell happened to literally rip it in half? He sweeps his searchlights and clucks to himself. No, this isn't where the source of the damage would be. The whole ship was ripped open like a clam and the internals were facing downwards. There's a flash of movement and he turns a spotlight in that direction. The light of an Agula's lure flashes a few times and he turns it away. "Sorry," he calls up to the woman while looking around. "What are you doing?" "Patrol for dangerous predators and a basic scan for damage while you search," he calls up. "The damaged areas are embedded in the stone. Use your brain. Think about the way this ship has been torn open." She calls down to him. All right. Back to the patrol then," he says as he continues to swim. "Don't worry about them, young man," Dr. Skitterway says into his earpiece. "I'll be giving them a lecture on how irresponsible and self-defeating it is to simply assume an answer and refusing to seek more information. They are likely correct in where the damage is, but scanning the vessel is still the smart thing to do." "Yes, ma'am," he replies as he continues to swim. Then he feels something. He switches his lights back down and catches a glimpse of something that vanishes in the light. "Possible contact! Everyone on guard!" The team slips further into the ship, using its internals to keep between themselves and whatever is out there. He scans the area several times and swims even deeper to try and spot whatever. There are several more things that outright vanish when the light touches them. Possible multiple contacts. Are you guys seeing this? There was movement, but we can't tell what it was. I'm not sensing much on the Axiom side of things, but that could just be an efficiency issue. Some Axiom using predators are very... Point that light straight down again. Emmanuel suddenly orders, and he does so. There is a boxy shape resting far below on the floor of the trench. Your sweep area just became a lot bigger. It did indeed, he confirms as he allows himself to sink. He then bumps into something as he descends, and he snatches out with his lower body's claw, and it wraps around. Something slimy and slick that squirms out of his grip in a second and reveals itself to be the thing he had been looking at. It has some kind of adaptive camouflage mucus. Disgusting, but effective. A very efficient and easily shed defense to slip away. "That'll be something to study," Dr. Skitterway notes. Her tone is eager. Lachlan is proving to be an increasingly large treasure trove of study and research. He descends to the level of the stasis pod, and with his central body passes off his spear and searchlight camera to another body, and descends to its level. There is a lot of sediment overtop the casket, and it takes a moment to clear it enough to find the access pad. Man, they really made this grade of colony ship to last. This pod is still viable. Whoever's inside is alive. Can you clean it off further? Not without potentially damaging it. It's caked on pretty badly, and if we're going to extract whoever's in here, we're going to have to outright destroy the pod to do it. It's not only completely gummed up, but the gumming has had time to outright fossilize. All right, tag its location and begin sweeping for more. The more people we rescue from this mess, the better. On it, he says before sending out a slight axiom pulse. It's not enough to disrupt anything, but it does stir the local axiom just enough to reveal what's artificial and what's part of the natural flows. There are 10. Goddess damn, I've got some work to do. In the end, there were a further 15 viable stasis pods that had fallen out of the broken shell of the nest. 4 more entire chambers had been exposed and lost their cargo, but only a small amount of them hadn't been breached by the pressure of the ocean, predation, or some other calamity. The people inside were very dead, and their bodies were long since picked clean. Even the bones had been ravaged by something, likely going after the marrow. The mucus-covered things bump up against him a few times to test him, but they're too cautious to actually try to take a snap at him. Mostly because they'd have a hard time wrapping their jaws around his wrist, let alone actually attacking his main body. They are, however, more than big enough to be a threat to the girls, so they're under strict orders to not go deeper than the wreck itself. They're clearly not comfortable too close to it, which is a relief, especially as these things are clearly hiding from something that's a threat to beings about the same size as the girls in the rescue crew, meaning that he could potentially be under attack. Possible contact, he says, as his searchlight illuminates something transparent and moving towards him, a single tendril descending from above. He watches it from the front and examines straight up at the same time. Being a Lydris has many advantages. More tendrils are descending, and whatever they're connected to is beyond the range of the searchlights. Then everything shifts as the water illuminates in ghostly blues, greens, and pinks. There is axiom in the display, and Hercules can feel a sheer primal want to reach out and caress the beautiful tendrils. They're so very... It brushes up against one of the mucus sharks, and it thrashes away in a sudden panic before another tendril, still transparent and completely invisible next to its glowing counterpart, grabs it and... blood in the water. There are unseen spikes on this predator. He sends out an axiom pulse, and there is a response of flaring orange light in the creature as the disruption moves through it, including in the fully transparent tendrils. We have a hostile contact, ambush, and lure predator, some kind of massive jellyfish. Priority 1 is your safety. Get out of there. Observe it from outside its attack range and no closer, Horus orders. All right, but I need to find the path, Hercules says as he scans the area and tries to find an area with a big enough gap for him to swim through. His size has been neatly used against him. The net closes further. That's it. We're having jellyfish for dinner. He sights up to the main body and throws a spear with his entire body, contorting himself along his tail, anchoring himself with his claws and transferring the motion along the pseudo-neck to the throwing body that he turns into the throw and adds an axiom to give the attack more power. The spear trails a cavitation bubble and is red hot as it hits the main body, moving so fast it tears clean through and keeps going up. I might have overdone that, he notes as he recalls the weapon and then has to drop it as it's scalding hot and boiling the water around it. Nope, I definitely overdid that. The dying creature slowly starts sinking down towards him. Oh, great.